Now there is a lot of confusion between developers, when it comes to these two important principles, that is abstraction and encapsulation. Because I think the reason is because if you look at the definition of abstraction and encapsulation, they are very much similar. For example, when we look at abstraction, the definition of abstraction says that abstraction is nothing but showing only what is necessary, and while encapsulation says hide complexity. So it is like we are trying to say the same thing but probably with different sentences, and I think that's why many of the developers are confused what exactly is abstraction and what exactly is encapsulation. So I thought that in this demo I will try to demonstrate actually what is abstraction and what is encapsulation. Now let's assume that you have a requirement of building up a very simple customer screen. So you can see that I have put up a nice prototype there, that how the customer screen will look like. So let's say that you want to basically go and develop this customer screen, and you can see that okay, this customer screen takes in customer code, it takes in customer name, and it has a very simple add button which will actually go and add this customer to the database. So looking at the requirement, you then give a thought and say that okay, so what do I need? Actually I need to create a very simple customer class which has a customer code, it has a customer name, and a function called as add, which will help me to add this customer to the database. So looking at the requirement, then you switch back to your Visual Studio and you start creating a customer class with two properties, must be customer code, customer name, and the add button, right? So let me just switch back to my Visual Studio and let's start creating our class. So looking at my requirement, what I need first is I definitely need a customer class. I need a property called as customer code, because that will help me to take customer code from the user interface, right? I'll need one more property called as the customer name, right? And I will need a very simple function called as add, which will help me to add to database. So my database code will go here. Now if you watch very closely this step, what I've done, in this step I have just looked into the basic things what I need from the customer class. In other words, I said that okay, for this customer class I need a customer code, I need a customer name, and I need an add function. That's it. I have yet not got into details of thinking that okay, in the add probably I will need a ADO.NET connection, or how do I go and validate my customer code, how do I go and validate my customer name, etc. I have just tried to answer the what part of the system, saying that what does my customer class needs, so that anybody can use this customer class. Right now, once I have identified what my customer class needs, now the next thing probably which I need to answer is how do I go and implement all these things, right? So I would like to probably go more in depth and talk about that. Okay, how will this add function go and add to the database? How will the customer code and customer name get validated? So in order to answer those questions, I need to basically now start going more granular, and I need to define how will this whole thing work, how will the validation work now, how will this add function actually go and add to the database. So for that what I do is I'm going to go and talk more granular. I'm going to define more granular methods here. So one method which I would like to define here is saying validate. Now this validate method, what it will do is it will actually go and validate the customer code and customer name. Okay, I will not write the code at this moment, but this validate method is responsible to validate the customer code and customer name. Now the validation can be anything at this moment. It can be a null check, it can be a length check, whatever it is, but this method will be responsible to validate the customer code and customer name. Now in the same way, we will need one more function which will help us to go and create ADO.NET connections, write SQL statements, fire it to database, etc. So for the same, I'll create a very simple function here called as create DB objects. Now this function, what it will do is it will help me to go and create ADO.NET connections, it will help me to go and create SQL statements and fire those on the database. So you can think about this as DB connection and SQL, etc. I'm not writing the actual code now, but you can just visualize that these functions will be meant for the same. So I'm almost done with my class, and this class is now basically it can be used by anyone to go and add this customer data to the database, right? So what it has is it has all the necessary properties like customer code, customer name. It has a very nice add function. It also has a lot of granular classes like validate and create DB objects which will help us to go and add this customer class to the database. So we are all done now, and let me go and recompile this project just to ensure everything is fine. So we started first with the what of the system, and we said that we need only the customer code, customer name, and the add function. And then we started going more granular, and we defined what extra methods we need so that we can actually go and accomplish adding this customer class to database. So now that we are complete, now that we have done with it, now it's time to go and start using this customer class in a user interface. So let me go and add a new project, a console application project, and let me consume this customer class into this console application. So let me go and add a reference to the customer class here, and now let me start using that customer object. Okay, so I'm going to say customer component dot customer obj is equal to new customer component dot customer, and I'm going to say obj dot. So I can see that basically I have the customer code, I have the customer name, I have the add function, and so I'll say okay, customer code is equal to let's say S001, and customer name is equal to Shiv. So I first set my customer code and customer code and customer name property. Then I say yes. Now you go and first validate if these data are proper or not. Then after that go and once the validation is successful, then go and create the DB objects, and finally go and add this whole thing to the database. Good. So basically we have successfully used this customer class in our project. But there is a problem here. The problem is these 3 lines of code here. Now these 3 lines of code are actually complicating the whole situation. In other words, if somebody wants to use your customer class, he has to understand, yes, he has to part the customer code, customer name, then first he has to call the validate function, then he has to go and create the database object, and then he has to go and call the add function. Now that is a very complicated procedure, right? Probably it would be great if you can give him a more simplified interface. So what you do for that is, to make this thing more simpler, you go back here and you ask yourself some questions. You say that, okay, basically what does my what does my end user, when I say end user, I'm going to say the developer who is actually going to use your component, what does he want actually, or what does he need in order to use the customer class? So he needs is just a customer code, he needs the customer name, and he needs the add function. That's it. He's not really he does not he should not be exposed to calling the validate function and create DB objects, create connection objects, those things. So we are complicating his life a lot, right? So in other words, what you have to expose here into your console application is just what are the minimum things what the end developer needs in order to use your component, and not much more than that. So thinking from that aspect, what you do is that, okay, you go here and you make this thing as private, you make this thing as private, and then you say that, okay, how about calling both of these things inside the add function itself, so that they are called. And now if you go to your static void main, you can happily go and delete both of these, and you have the normal add function only which you need to call. Now if you see, right, your interface, it is very much simplified. Now anybody can go and use a component because you have exposed only the minimal things what the end developer needs or what the end user needs. So let's reiterate what we did. Step 1, we first identified what do we need. In other words, we took a 50,000 feet level kind of a view and said that what does a customer class need? It just needs a customer code and customer name. Step 2, we expanded further and we said that, okay, how do we achieve this what? In other words, we defined 2 more functions called as validate and create DB object. And step 3, what we did is we said that we looked at our interfaces and we said that we are exposing too much. In other words, we are violating the what we discussed previously, right? So we went ahead and we made those complicated methods as private. We fine-tuned the system, right? Now let me answer, where was abstraction and where was encapsulation? Now the step 1, when we were identifying the what part of the system, is nothing but abstraction. This is abstraction. And the step 3, where we actually simplified our interfaces by hiding the complexity of validating the objects and creating database connections, right, or creating database objects, is nothing but encapsulation. So you can think about abstraction as a thought process, or you can think about abstraction as nothing but show only what is necessary, show only what is minimal, okay, which will help you to do your work. While encapsulation means basically bringing down complexity. You can also think in another way that encapsulation implements abstraction. Okay, so you can see, you can basically putting your all head together. Abstraction is a thought process. Abstraction is a modeling term, I'll say rather, and while encapsulation is actually the implementation. So I hope that this session was useful. In this session we were trying to demonstrate practically. It is very difficult to demonstrate actually, but I tried my level best to demonstrate what exactly is the difference between abstraction and encapsulation. Thank you very much. Now whatever video you have seen, right, is just a glimpse of what we have done. So in case you are interested in our video package, you can go to our site, that is www.questpon.com. You can call on this number and you can ask the complete DVD package what we have. So in this DVD package what we have done is basically we have covered almost everything what a .NET developer wants. So right from basics of ASP.NET, object-oriented programming, SQL Server, to new technologies like WCF, Silverlight, Link, Azure, Entity Framework. We also have UML, architecture, estimation, project management. There is a complete invoicing project end-to-end which is covered, so that you can get a better feel of how to actually create projects in a systematic manner. We have covered server products, both for SharePoint 2007 as well as for 2010. We have a lot of best practices video on SQL Server, etc. So this complete package, you can get from www.questpon.com if you're interested, and you can call on this number and you can ask for the rates. It's a very decent rate what we have. In the same way, as compared to the videos, we also have one more product with us, that is our interview question books. So we have different kinds of interview question books, right from .NET interview questions to SQL Server interview questions, SharePoint interview questions, BizTalk interview questions, etc. So in case you are interested in the books part, you can call on these numbers as per your location. So you can see these numbers on the board at this moment. So I hope that you keep enjoying the videos, you keep seeing our site, and I hope that you gain more knowledge. Thank you very much.